Every morning before the sun even touched the hills, a skinny little boy walked down the dusty road with a small bucket of food in his hands. People laughed at him, because the horse he fed looked completely hopeless, weak ribs showing, wounded legs trembling, eyes so tired it looked ready to give up forever. "Why waste food on that dying animal?" villagers whispered. But the boy never stopped. Even when he barely had enough food for himself, he still saved half for the horse. Day after day, week after week, he sat beside that broken animal, talking to it like it was his only friend in the world. And then, something unbelievable started happening. The horse slowly began changing. Its body grew stronger, its eyes sharper, its spirit fiercer. Until one morning, the entire town froze in shock, because the same weak horse nobody believed in was standing taller and more powerful than anyone had ever seen before. But what happened next changed the poor boy's life forever. Before you go, make sure you subscribe first for more powerful transformation stories like this. Don't forget to drop a comment below and tell us, what do you think really changed this boy's life, the horse or his kindness? If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button so we know you want more emotional stories like this. And press the bell icon so you never miss our next inspiring video. Also, don't forget to share this video with your friends and family who love emotional and motivational stories. And tell us in the comments, what topic should our next video be on? In a small forgotten village surrounded by dry, empty land, lived a boy nobody ever noticed. The houses were old, the roads were dusty, and every day felt harder than the one before. While other children laughed and played near the market, the young boy spent his mornings carrying heavy buckets of water under the burning sun just to earn a few coins. His clothes were torn, his shoes barely held together, and his stomach was almost always empty. He lived in a tiny broken house at the edge of the village with his sick mother. The roof leaked whenever it rained, and cold wind slipped through the cracks in the walls every night. There was no father to help them. Some villagers said the man had disappeared years ago. Others said he died while searching for work far away. But the boy never asked questions anymore. He had already learned that life rarely gave poor people answers. Every morning before sunrise, he left home searching for small jobs. Sometimes he cleaned dirty market stalls after merchants finished selling vegetables. Sometimes he carried sacks for travelers. Other days, he searched through leftover piles near the market just to collect spoiled vegetables his mother could still cook. No matter how hard he worked, it was never enough. The villagers barely looked at him. Some ignored him completely. Others mocked him openly. "There goes the useless poor boy again," people whispered. "Even stray dogs live better than him." The boy stayed silent every time. He kept his eyes down and continued walking because he knew fighting back would change nothing. But hidden behind an abandoned wooden barn outside the village, there was one creature who waited for him every single evening. A weak, starving horse. The animal looked close to death the first time the boy found it. Its ribs pushed through its skin, one of its legs was injured badly, and its tired eyes carried a sadness the boy understood too well. Flies covered its wounds, and old ropes still hung from its neck like somebody had abandoned it long ago. Most people would have walked away. But not the boy. That evening, even though he had almost nothing to eat himself, he broke his small piece of bread in half and placed it carefully in front of the horse. The animal hesitated at first, too weak to trust anyone. Then slowly, it ate. From that day forward, the boy returned every evening. Sometimes he brought old carrots collected from the market floor. Sometimes leftover vegetables. Sometimes only dry bread soaked in water so the horse could chew it easier. No matter how hungry he was, he always saved something for the animal first. As days passed, the boy began talking to the horse like it was his only friend. "I know what it feels like," he whispered one evening while gently touching the horse's neck. "People look at us like we don't matter." The horse stayed quiet, but its eyes slowly softened whenever the boy arrived. One cold night, the boy returned home with only enough food for one person. His mother pushed the bowl toward him weakly, telling him to eat. But after she fell asleep, the boy quietly carried half the food back to the barn for the horse. Another evening, heavy rain crashed over the village. Thunder shook the sky while people rushed inside their warm homes. But the boy ran through the storm carrying an old blanket in his arms. He reached the barn completely soaked and wrapped the trembling horse carefully to keep it warm. The next morning, villagers saw him sleeping beside the horse inside the barn. They laughed loudly. "Look at that fool," one man said. "He cares more about a dying horse than himself." "That useless animal will never survive," another villager added. The boy heard every word, but said nothing. Instead, he gently placed his hand against the horse's face and looked into its tired eyes. Then quietly, with pain and determination in his voice, he made a promise. "One day, both of us will become stronger." After that night in the storm, something slowly began to change between the boy and the horse. Every evening after finishing work in the village, the boy returned to the abandoned barn with food hidden inside his pockets. Some days it was only a few old carrots stolen from waste piles near the market. Other days it was dry bread soaked in water. But no matter how little he had, he always shared it with the horse first. The animal no longer backed away when the boy approached. Instead, it waited for him. The moment the boy appeared near the barn door, the horse slowly lifted its tired head and watched him carefully. Its weak tail moved slightly for the first time, almost as if it recognized the only person who still cared whether it survived. The boy smiled softly every time he saw that reaction. "You're getting stronger already," he whispered while placing food down carefully. At first, the horse could barely stand for more than a few minutes. Its injured leg trembled badly under its weight. But the boy refused to give up on it. After work each day, he searched the hills outside the village looking for herbs older villagers once used to treat wounds. He crushed leaves with stones, cleaned the horse's injuries gently, and wrapped the leg using pieces torn from his own shirt. The process was slow, painfully slow. But week after week, the wound started healing. The horse's dull eyes slowly became sharper. Its body still looked thin, but strength was quietly returning little by little. Sometimes while the boy cleaned the barn floor, the horse stood nearby watching him instead of lying helplessly in the corner. For the first time in a long while, the animal looked alive. People in the village began noticing. "That horse is still alive," one merchant asked in disbelief. "Impossible," another man muttered. "It should have died weeks ago." The boy ignored them and continued caring for the animal every single day. One afternoon, while the boy carried water buckets through the market, a rich stable owner stopped him suddenly. The man had heard rumors about the recovering horse and decided to see it himself. That evening he followed the boy to the barn. The stable owner walked slowly around the horse, studying its body carefully. "It still has good bones," the man said. "I'll give you a few coins for it." The boy immediately shook his head. "It's not for sale." The man laughed loudly. "You're poor and starving," he replied. "Why keep a useless animal?" The boy stepped protectively in front of the horse. "Because nobody else did." For a moment, the stable owner's smile disappeared. Then he tossed a coin into the dirt and walked away. "Suit yourself," he muttered coldly. That night, the boy sat beside the horse longer than usual. "You don't belong to them," he whispered quietly. "You're free." The horse gently lowered its head beside him. As more days passed, the bond between them grew stronger than anyone could understand. The horse began following the boy around the field outside the barn. Whenever the boy sat alone watching sunsets over the dry hills, the horse stood beside him silently like an old friend. Then one morning, something incredible happened. The boy carefully climbed onto the horse's back for the very first time. At first the animal moved slowly, its injured legs still weak. But step by step, it carried the boy across the empty field while sunlight spread across the horizon. The boy laughed softly for the first time in months. Every day after that, they practiced together. Short walks became small runs. Small runs became powerful sprints. The horse's muscles slowly returned beneath its skin. Its fur became cleaner and shinier. The sadness inside its eyes started disappearing. Even the villagers began staring whenever they saw the animal running through the fields. One old man watched silently from a distance one evening as the horse raced across the land with surprising speed. "There's something unusual about that horse," he whispered to himself. But the boy didn't care about rumors or attention. For him, the horse was no longer just an animal he rescued. It was family. Then one sunset, while the boy rode across the open field like always, the horse suddenly surged forward with explosive speed so powerful the wind nearly ripped tears from the boy's eyes. The dry ground thundered beneath them. The boy grabbed tightly as the horse raced faster and faster across the land like it had finally remembered who it truly was. And in that moment, the boy realized something unbelievable was beginning to happen. By the time summer arrived, the weak, starving horse nobody believed in had become the biggest mystery in the village. Every morning people stopped their work just to watch the animal run across the dry fields outside town. Dust exploded beneath its powerful legs while sunlight reflected across its now healthy coat. The same horse that once looked ready to die now moved with strength and pride that stunned everyone who saw it. Even the boy could hardly believe the transformation himself. The horse's ribs no longer showed through its skin. Its injured leg had healed almost completely, and its once tired eyes now burned with fierce energy. Whenever the boy approached, the animal instantly lifted its head and walked toward him proudly. The bond between them had become unbreakable. But not everyone was happy about it. The rich stable owner who once laughed at the boy now watched from a distance with growing jealousy. Every time villagers praised the horse, anger filled his face. "That animal should belong to me," he muttered bitterly. Soon rumors spread through the village faster than ever. Some people claimed the horse came from a legendary bloodline. Others believed the boy had somehow trained it secretly at night. Children followed them through the streets hoping to see the famous horse up close. For the first time in his life, people finally noticed the poor boy. But attention also brought problems. One afternoon the stable owner gathered villagers in the market and announced something huge. A horse race. The biggest race the village had seen in years. The prize money was more than the boy had ever imagined. Enough to repair his broken house. Enough to buy medicine for his sick mother. Enough to finally escape poverty forever. The moment people heard about the race, excitement exploded through the village. Rich riders immediately signed up with expensive horses from nearby towns. Men bragged loudly about victory while crowds gathered around them. Then suddenly someone laughed and pointed toward the poor boy standing quietly near the market. "Why doesn't he race his miracle horse?" the man joked. People burst into laughter. That poor kid against real riders. He'd lose before reaching halfway. The horse probably only looks fast because nobody here owns proper horses. The boy stayed silent, but their words cut deeply inside him. That evening he sat beside the horse near the barn, feeling uncertain for the first time in months. "What if they're right?" he whispered quietly. "What if we're not good enough?" The horse gently pushed its head against the boy's shoulder as if trying to answer him. Later that night, the boy returned home and found his mother awake beside the small candle near her bed. Even though sickness had weakened her badly, she smiled when she saw him. "You're afraid," she said softly. The boy looked down. "Everyone thinks I'll fail." His mother slowly reached for his hand. "For years those people treated you like nothing," she whispered. "But that horse trusted you when nobody else did. Don't let fear destroy what you built together." The boy sat silently for a long moment. Then finally, he nodded. The next morning training began. Every sunrise the boy rode across the open fields with the horse, pushing harder than ever before. They practiced turning sharply through narrow paths, running across rough ground, and building speed over long distances. Day after day, they became faster, stronger, closer. Sometimes the boy fell from exhaustion after training, but the horse always returned to stand beside him protectively until he got back up again. Villagers secretly gathered nearby just to watch. Even people who once mocked the boy now stared in silence while the horse raced across the land like a storm. But hidden behind the growing admiration, danger was quietly building. Late one night, strange noises came from outside the abandoned barn. The boy woke instantly. At first he thought it was wind. But then the horse suddenly began kicking the ground nervously inside the barn. The boy grabbed a lantern and rushed outside. A shadow moved quickly near the fence. "Hey!" the boy shouted. The figure ran immediately into the darkness. When the boy reached the barn entrance, his heart nearly stopped. Sharp metal objects had been scattered across the ground where the horse usually trained. One wrong step could have destroyed the animal's legs forever. The boy's hands trembled with anger and fear. Someone wanted the horse injured. Someone wanted them to lose. The horse breathed heavily beside him while the lantern light flickered across the dangerous traps in the dirt. The boy quickly cleared everything away before calming the frightened animal gently. "It's okay," he whispered while holding the horse close. "I won't let anyone hurt you." But deep inside, he already knew who was responsible. The stable owner. That night the boy barely slept. For the first time since rescuing the horse, he realized how badly some people wanted to see them fail. Yet the next morning, despite fear and danger, the boy climbed back onto the horse once again. Because now this race meant more than money. It meant proving that broken things could rise again. And as the sun slowly rose over the village, the day everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. Race day. The morning of the race arrived with noise echoing across the entire village. People filled the streets before sunrise, rushing toward the large open field where the competition would take place. Merchants shouted from crowded stalls, children climbed fences for a better view, and riders from nearby towns proudly showed off their expensive horses while groups of villagers gathered around them in excitement. For the first time in years, the whole village felt alive. And standing far away near the edge of the field, the poor boy watched everything quietly beside his horse. Unlike the other riders, he wore no fancy racing clothes. His shirt was old and faded from years of hard work. His boots were cracked, and dust covered almost everything he owned. But beside him stood the powerful horse everyone could no longer ignore. Its body looked completely different now. Strong muscles moved beneath its shining coat. Its injured leg had healed, its eyes burned with confidence, and every breath carried strength that once seemed impossible. Still, people continued whispering when they saw the boy. "He doesn't belong here. The race will end quickly for him. Poor people always dream too big." The boy heard every word while tightening the old rope around the horse carefully. Fear twisted inside his chest, but he tried not to show it. Then suddenly, the rich stable owner approached riding a massive black horse decorated with expensive silver equipment. Several riders followed behind him proudly. The man stopped directly in front of the boy and smiled coldly. "You still have time to leave before embarrassing yourself," he said quietly. The boy looked up without fear this time. "We didn't come here to quit." For a brief second the stable owner's expression darkened. Then he laughed and rode away. A loud horn suddenly echoed across the field. The race was about to begin. Riders moved toward the starting line while crowds pushed forward excitedly. Dust swirled through the hot air as nervous horses stomped against the ground impatiently. The boy gently touched the horse's neck one last time. "No matter what happens," he whispered softly, "thank you for surviving." The horse breathed heavily and lowered its head slightly as if understanding every word. Then the horn blasted again. And the race began. The riders exploded forward instantly. Powerful horses charged across the open field while the crowd screamed wildly behind them. Dirt flew through the air as riders fought for position along the narrow path stretching across the dry land. At first, the boy struggled badly. The other riders pushed aggressively around him, blocking his path and forcing him farther behind. One rider slammed shoulders against him while another cut directly in front of his horse. The crowd began laughing again. "He's falling behind already. I told you he couldn't compete." The boy gripped tightly while trying to stay balanced. Fear and frustration rushed through him as stronger riders surrounded him from every side. Then suddenly disaster almost struck. One horse clipped dangerously close to his own, causing the boy's horse to stumble hard against the rocky ground. Gasps erupted from the crowd as the animal nearly crashed completely. For one terrifying moment, everything slowed. The boy remembered the starving injured horse he first found beside the abandoned barn. The storms they survived together. The hunger. The pain. The nights everyone laughed at them. And then, he remembered the promise he made long ago. "One day, both of us will become stronger." Something changed inside him. The fear disappeared. The boy stopped listening to the crowd. Stopped caring about rich riders. Stopped doubting himself. Instead, he trusted the horse completely. He leaned forward slightly and whispered only one word. "Go." And suddenly, the horse exploded forward. Dust erupted behind them like a storm as the animal accelerated with unbelievable speed. One rider after another disappeared behind them while shocked screams spread across the crowd. "What is happening? That horse is flying!" Even the stable owner turned in disbelief as the poor boy surged past him across the field. The wind roared against the boy's face while the horse thundered forward faster than ever before. Every powerful stride shook the ground beneath them as years of pain, survival, and determination seemed to explode into one unstoppable moment. The crowd that once mocked him now stood frozen in absolute shock. The final stretch approached quickly. Only the stable owner remained ahead. His massive black horse raced fiercely toward the finish line while villagers screamed wildly from every direction. The stable owner looked behind him and panic filled his face as he saw the poor boy gaining rapidly. "Impossible," he whispered. The boy tightened his grip. The horse pushed harder. Closer. Closer. Then with one final burst of unbelievable speed, the horse surged ahead. The crowd erupted. People screamed louder than ever as the poor boy crossed the finish line first. For 1 second, complete silence covered the field. Nobody could believe what they had just witnessed. Then suddenly the entire village exploded into cheers. The poor forgotten boy had won. And standing in the middle of the field surrounded by roaring crowds, the boy gently wrapped his arms around the horse's neck while tears filled his eyes. Because, together, they had just shocked everyone. After the race ended, the field remained filled with noise, but for the boy everything felt strangely silent. He was still sitting on the horse's back, breathing heavily, as villagers surrounded them in shock. People who once ignored him now pushed forward just to get a closer look. The same voices that used to insult him were now filled with disbelief and admiration. The poor boy won. No one expected this. That horse, it's unbelievable. The stable owner stood far away, staring at the result in complete silence. His expensive horse was covered in dust, while the boy's horse stood tall in the center of attention like a champion born from nothing. For the first time, the boy didn't feel small anymore. Moments later, officials came forward and placed the prize money in his hands. It was more money than he had ever seen in his entire life. His hands trembled while holding it, not because of greed, but because he finally saw a way out of suffering. But instead of celebrating immediately, his first thought was his mother. That same evening, he rushed back home. When he entered the broken house, his mother was lying weakly on the bed. The moment she saw him standing there with tears in his eyes, she already understood. "You won," she whispered softly. The boy nodded, unable to speak for a moment. For the first time in years, his mother smiled without pain. With the prize money, everything changed quickly. The broken roof was repaired. Food became regular. Medicine finally reached his mother. The house that once felt like a prison slowly turned into a place of hope. But the biggest change was not in the house. It was in how the village looked at him. People who once mocked him now greeted him respectfully. Some even apologized quietly when they passed him on the street. Children followed him around asking questions about the horse, while adults spoke about his victory as something unforgettable. Yet the boy never acted proud. Every morning, he still went to the barn. The horse that once looked like it was dying was now stronger than ever, but the boy treated it the same way he always had. He fed it carefully, cleaned it, and sat beside it like an old friend. One day, a wealthy merchant came to the village offering a huge amount of money. "I want to buy your horse," he said. "Name your price." The offer shocked everyone around them. It was enough money to make the boy rich forever. But the boy refused without hesitation. "This horse is not something to sell," he said calmly. "It's the reason I'm alive today." The merchant left disappointed, and villagers quietly admired his answer. As time passed, something unexpected happened. The horse became more than just a racing champion. It became a symbol of survival, loyalty, and second chances. People from nearby villages came just to see the horse that changed everything. Some brought injured animals, hoping the boy would help them the same way he once helped his own horse. Slowly, the barn became a place of healing instead of abandonment. One evening, an old man from the village approached the boy with surprising news. "This horse belonged to a legendary racer many years ago," he said. It was thought to be lost after an accident. The boy listened silently, looking at the horse standing beside him. But instead of feeling amazed by its past, he felt grateful for its present. Because no matter where it came from, it had once been broken, just like him. As the sun began to set over the fields, the boy climbed onto the horse one last time that day. They rode slowly through the village streets where everything had once felt impossible. Now people stepped aside not in disrespect, but in admiration. The wind moved gently as the horse walked forward, carrying the boy who once had nothing. And in that quiet moment, he understood something deeply. Strength is not born from power. It is born from kindness that refuses to give up. He looked down at the horse and smiled softly. Then he whispered, just like the first day they met, "We made it, together."